Okay, wonderful. Can everybody see my screen okay? Thumbs up, awesome. Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Christine. I work with the Naugatuck+Valley Council of Governments. Myself and my colleague Tom will be presenting today. And if you're here, you're interested in learning about waste reduction at Connecticut transfer stations. A quick housekeeping that, the meeting is being recorded, as you just saw. Please note that all the flyers said that this meeting would run for an hour and a half, but I know the Zoom invite might have just looked like an hour. So I just wanted to give that heads up to everyone to be respectful of your time. We're trying to save a good chunk of time at the end for questions and conversation from the participants. And if we could just kindly ask that everyone remain on mute until we open it up to questions, but please feel free to use the chat to put any questions or comments in there. We'll definitely circle back and address those at the end. Okay, great. So as I mentioned, I'm with the Naugatuck+Valley Council of Governments, or NVCOG. We serve 19 municipalities in West Central Connecticut as the regional government. Our decision-making board are the chief elected officials, the mayors and first select people, and they have a serious concern with waste management in the region. Now, if you're here from beyond the borders of the Naugatuck Valley, we welcome anyone to attend this, and it's not specific to that region, so don't worry, but we're basically responding to a need that we've heard not only in our region, but really throughout Connecticut, that we are in a waste capacity crisis, that we are in need of sustainable, smart, long-term solutions for waste reduction. And so NVCOG staff has been engaged over the last several years in planning and investigating these different strategies. One of the ways we've done that is by providing outreach and educational support for the 4 sustainable materials management grants that have been awarded in our region. So we'll talk a little bit more about those later. I also wanted to give a plug to our sister agency, South Central Connecticut Regional Council of Governments. They serve the New Haven area and the 15 municipalities around there, a significant portion of the state, about 1/6 of the population. They also, unsurprisingly, like most of Connecticut, have a significant concern and interest in waste management. Also engaging in state level waste planning, and just like us, they have 4 municipalities they're supporting with these SMM grants. And I'm just gonna ask my colleague Tom to put in the chat here. So although we are focused right now in this presentation on transfer station waste reduction, we have next week, SCROG is going to be hosting one about curbside pickup for these same strategies. So with that, we should cover all the municipalities in Connecticut, is the hope. Okay, so why are we talking about organics and pay-as-you-throw? A quick note that I'll be using the terms pay-as-you-throw and unit-based pricing, or UBP, interchangeably. The reason is that through empirical research, through looking at our neighbors across New England and across the world, we know that these are the 2 most impactful and practical strategies we can implement to reduce waste. And that's purely in terms of the numbers. It's important to note that these can be implemented by municipalities rather than requiring an act of the legislature. If you're really like a garbage girl like me, maybe you know about things like extended producer responsibility and some of these bigger, like, legislative schemes that could be used to reduce waste, but that requires, all the people in the, state Congress to agree on something, and that's not always easy. So this is something your municipality can do right now. Is there some issues in the chat? Let me just make sure. You can't see the slides? Whoop. Oh, okay. Somebody should have said something. Oh no. Okay, let me try that again. Can you see my slides now? Okay, great. Sorry about that, folks. Let me get that. And if I do this, are you still seeing them? Okay, great. I'll definitely send out my slides afterwards. So this was what when I was talking about NVCOG. Here's for SCROG, and now we're talking about why this is so important. Thanks, everybody, and I'm sorry about that. Okay, and then the last thing I want to mention is that the reason we're so focused on this is because the SMM grant programs have given us Connecticut-specific data about these two strategies that's going to be really useful in helping your municipality decide whether it's right or not to implement these programs. So let's start with organics. We know from DEEP's CMMS, the Comprehensive Materials Management Strategy, that it's our largest opportunity for waste diversion. So DEEP estimates that about 40% of the state's MSW stream is compostable. So that includes food scraps, which is about 22% of that number, but also yard waste, certain paper products. And if you think about trying to reduce or divert 40% of the waste stream, that's extremely significant. Also from maybe a more anecdotal standpoint, but important to note, people get composting. Their grandma did it. They used to live in California where everybody did it. People understand this, and it's a much easier concept to sort of sell and communicate than something more complicated like unit-based pricing. As I mentioned, I will be sharing these slides later, but I just wanted to put up a few considerations if your community is thinking about adopting an organics collection program. There are some things you're going to want to ask as you design this program. So consider this a little guide to get you started. I don't necessarily need to go over every one of these, especially because we're going to hear our wonderful panelists talk about this shortly, but wanted to make sure you had this as a resource. And a quick note that before you make any changes related to an organics program, always check with your friendly DEEP permitting staff, and they will make sure that you have that you're all up to speed with everything you need. Let's briefly talk about pay-as-you-throw as well, just to level set, make sure everyone understands what this is. Sometimes, like we said, called unit-based pricing or smart, save money and reduce trash. So the idea is that right now, the way we pay for our waste disposal is generally through a flat fee sort of in our taxes that's tied to our property value or an annual sticker. And that amount isn't actually connected to the amount of waste you produce. What that means is that there's not really a price signal, not really an incentive for people to reduce the amount of waste that they produce. And what happens is that with a pay-as-you-throw system, we shift that to a per unit charge. And we'll mostly be talking about bags today, but there are other ways to do this. You could do it by weight or volume. You could do it by a bin. You could do it with a punch card. There are many different ways. But in that case, you pay per unit of trash, which means the more trash you make, the more money you pay. Just like everything else, just like your electricity bill, just like when you go to a store, if you want to buy 5 of a product instead of 1, you have to pay more money. It's a very logical and simple system, but that price signal really motivates residents to change their behavior and make less waste in the first place. I'll briefly show this slide. I just thought this is like sort of like I said, it's a bit of a complicated concept, but here's a visual way to understand it. 2 houses that pay the same amount in property taxes are, in most models, again, every town is a little different with how they fund this, but they're paying the same amount to have their waste collected. But house A has very little waste and recycles, and house B has a ton of waste. So there's a couple things going on here. First of all, it's not fair. Second of all, house B has no incentive whatsoever to change. And third of all, house A is subsidizing the wasteful behavior of the neighbor. With pay-as-you-throw, it's much more fair, and it's also very transparent. You see how much you're paying for your waste. We've seen pay-as-you-throw succeed in our backyard for many years. We've seen it all throughout Massachusetts, Vermont, where it's mandatory, Maine, New Hampshire. And, don't feel like you need to look at all these little charts, but they basically demonstrate a precipitous drop in the amount of waste produced almost immediately after pay-as-you-throw programs are enacted. And also an increase in recycling. And we'll have we have 2 wonderful speakers today from Massachusetts who will talk about their programs. Again, here are some considerations if you want to design your own program. Please feel free to take a peek at these later and use that as a guide or a starting point. And our panelists are going to be talking a lot about this, so I don't want to steal their thunder. I mentioned that this SMM grants, but they've piloted these before. So very exciting. We have a ton of data to share. And what we're going to do is just narrow this down to look at our transfer station or drop-off programs. So here's what we're actually seeing. We have up to a 43% clean food capture rate, which is stunning, a voluntary program, and we're capturing almost half of the available food waste. Even in these other numbers, 23%, 33%, for the first year of a voluntary program, that's phenomenal. We're also seeing these stunningly low contamination rates. And this is a little different than curbside collections, where we tend to see higher contamination rates. And I think this is just because people who use the transfer station are more connected to their waste. They care a little more, and they also see what their neighbors are doing. So there's that positive peer pressure aspect to it. But you're never going to get a load of trash turned away when you have or I should say trash, I'm sorry, a load of organics turned away when you have a 0.6% contamination rate. That makes the whole business more profitable for the anaerobic digesters and compost facilities. And that means, the more profit they make, the more they're able to lower your tipping fees. And finally, again, totally voluntary first-year pilot program, we're already seeing in the double digits of waste reduction. Just a couple more considerations before we turn it over to our wonderful panelists. We're talking about organics and pay-as-you-throw, but there are many ways you can reduce waste at the transfer station. A swap shop is kind of a no-brainer. You don't need an extra permit for it. It's a great equity tool to help people who might be struggling or unable to afford a new, desk or chair or decoration or whatever. Really, all you need is some sort of shelter, probably with a roof. And we'll talk more. Emily will talk about they have a swap shop in Brewster that is very successful. Donation bins. This is another, if you don't have a clothing donation bin at your transfer station, you got to get one. It's just a no-brainer. It's so simple. You partner with a nonprofit or a for-profit company, and every ton of clothing that gets donated or sent to them is a ton you're not hauling. So that's really exciting. And it also means it gets put back into some sort of productive reuse. But not just clothing. We hear about that a lot, but you could also do this with toys or books or even things like eyeglasses. Tons of possibilities. Never underestimate the importance of good, clean signage. Lots of people want to recycle right, but don't know how. And you have that audience at the transfer station where you can put the sign there to help them. And finally, we have, events sometimes, hazardous waste collections, paper shredding events, even things like tag sales that promote reuse. If you have a good contact list, like for when you collect transfer station stickers, reach out to these people and make sure they're aware. Last thing I wanted to briefly mention is implementing this at a transfer station as opposed to curbside. You do have a few sort of advantages here. One thing is that you have higher engagement. Like we were saying, people think more about their trash when they're at a transfer station. You also have a bit of a captive audience. If you want to educate people about these programs and get them up to speed, they're coming to the transfer station anyway. This is not like trying to knock on doors in a neighborhood. You definitely have that interaction. Now, we want to be respectful of our attendants. We know they work super hard and they do not have the easiest job. But to a degree, they can act either as formal or informal educators and enforcers. People have good rapport with the attendants. I've seen some great relationships, and one of the attendants in our region always carries dog biscuits in his pocket because there's always pups coming to the transfer station. And these people are part of your community. They can help explain these programs. And finally, there's a bit of a sense of trust. I know that there's been lots of stuff in the news over the past few years about, is recycling really working and where is my stuff going? At the transfer station, you see all your stuff. You see that it's separated. You can talk to your neighbors and friends about it. And I think there's just a bit of a sense of community and trust that doesn't quite exist with curbside. But there are cons here. Site constraints. If you have a really, really small transfer station, it's not necessarily easy to find space for another bin, but we'll also talk about that. Staffing limitations. I guarantee your transfer station does not have the same staff as USA Hauling. So I understand that we want to be cognizant of our hardworking attendants and what we're asking of them. And then finally, your residents probably always going to have the option to switch over to a private hauler. And we want to be careful that we're not putting too much of a burden on them to drive them to that. Otherwise, your waste reduction efforts could go to waste. Oh, that was kind of cute. I didn't plan that. Okay. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Tom Doherty. We're going to get into that panel discussion. And I'm so sorry about the slides before.
Hi, everybody. So this part of the presentation will consist of 10 questions we feel are commonly asked by municipal staff who are considering to participate in a UBP and organics diversion program. So we'll ask these questions to our experienced panelists who have been involved in implementing these programs in their towns. And we ask the audience to just pose questions we have during the questions in the chat, and we'll address them at the end. So today, looks like we'll have two panelists today. One couldn't make it, unfortunately. Did Jill come in yet or no?
Yes.
I don't see.
Oh,
Is she
Jill came
here?
in. Okay. All right. So we'll have three panelists, excuse me. And I'll just have them introduce themselves. First, we'll have Linda Cernick introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. I am the program director of Northern Berkshire Solid Waste Management District, and I'm a consultant for Hilltown Resource Management Cooperative, which composes of 24 municipalities. And I do everything from the grants to the research to the reporting to special collections. And I also am a third-party inspector with Mass DEP. For operations and maintenance of transfer stations. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
All right. And then Jill Senior.
Yeah. Hi, my name's Jill Senior. I'm the Director of Solid Waste and Recycling for the town of Stonington. I manage the transfer station and the commercial and residential trash pickup for all of the town of Stonington. And I'm happy to be here.
Great. And then lastly, Emily Sumner.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. My name's Emily Sumner. I've been with the town of Brewster at the Public Works for 8 years now, and I oversee all the data and at the transfer station, as well as all the operations at the DPW. So thanks for having me.
Okay, thank you, everybody. All right, so we'll move on to our first question. The topic will be physical transfer station setup. The question is, how is your transfer station situated in terms of collecting trash, recyclables, food scraps, yard waste, electronics, etc.? What works well and what doesn't? So first we'll have Linda answer that question.
Great question. All of my municipalities that I work with have either a drop-off transfer station or drop-off recycling center. We're kind of unique here out in the Berkshires in Hampshire County. Our census population ranges anywhere from our largest town has 8,000 residents to our smallest has 110. So every transfer station is unique to the town and to the population. I wanted to talk a little bit about permits. Each transfer station does require the resident to purchase a permit to enter into the facility. The transfer stations are for residents only. And depending on, what transfer station you go to, each have different recycling programs. It's pretty much self-serve. So let's take Williamstown. You come into the transfer station, the attendant checks you in to make sure you have a sticker. And then we have the different sections for your municipal trash, MSW. We have the recyclables for your commingle and your paper. And many of the towns have a paper compactor, which makes it much easier. One of our towns, which is Williamstown, has an organics program right on site, and I'll get into that later on. And a few of our towns collect yard waste for recycling. In electronics, Not every one of our transfer stations collects electronics, but about half do, and the ones that don't, we have shared services for other towns to utilize, and we have special collections. What works well and what doesn't, I think working together as a team, all of the towns working together and not against each other, and sharing services has really made our transfer stations very successful. What doesn't, honestly, I'd have to say everything is running very smoothly with our transfer stations. So I don't really have any negative or issues that aren't working. I wanted to let you know that most of our programs run on taxation and permits. We have one town that runs on an enterprise fund. Enterprise fund, you look at your yearly expenses, and the town implements pricing according to what they spent the year before. So.
Okay, great. Thank you, Linda. So next we'll call on Jill.
So I think the Stonington transfer station, we have a pretty good setup for residents to easily dispose of their material. I think making it easy for the residents is a big plus for us. As soon as you enter our facility, we divert the people bringing yard waste, our leaf compost area. It's a flat milled area, so we can divert those people so they don't take up room in the lines getting into the gatehouse. It's well received by the contractors and the residents. We compost a lot of leaves in Stonington, and all those leaves are offered as compost later on in the spring. And that's a great area for us. Once you move into the facility, we have gatehouse attendants that screen all of the waste that's brought in, and residents are guided where to drop their waste. Most of the residents are forwarded to the first staging area where they can dispose of the most frequently disposed of items, the pay-as-you-throw bags, the single stream, recycling, and metal. We also have a food scrap collection dumpster, a plastic film collection bin, and e-waste collection. It's our busiest area of the transfer station. And if residents moved further up into the station, we have trailer containers for tires and mattresses, and they can also dispose of demo in that area. It's an easy flow through the station, and again, it's quite easy. We make it as easy as possible for the residents. What works well and why does it work well? I think the signage and having the ability to control the steady stream of traffic that we have. We may seem like a small town. We do serve little over 7,600 residents. But our transfer station, we're pretty proud of this. We saw over 117,000 vehicles last year. So having a good flow and well-marked areas definitely attribute to us being able to handle all the residents that come in.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jill. And then lastly, we'll have Emily.
Hi. Yeah, so we have a transfer station that we enter everybody enters in through our gatehouse, which has a plate reader on it. So that's a new addition in the last few years, which is nice. We don't have permits anymore. We are a resident only transfer station. If you aren't a resident, you do have to pay a day pass. And then you can either go from there, you go left to our swap shop, dump debris for metal and demo, or you can go up the hill to dump your pay-as-you-throw trash, your food waste, your electronics. And then behind that area is where our brush and leaves, which also people take for compost. It gets screened and we hand it out to residents. So I think our flow works well. We have a one-way in and out for our pay-as-you-throw with trash recyclables, and newspaper and electronics. So it's kind of a good flow that works well.
And we just have a couple of spotlight photos we want to share for this one. So this is Emily's transfer station that she was talking about. As you can see, it's sort of nice and neat and orderly, doesn't take up too much space, so you don't need a huge site for this, with some clear signage. And we also have the wonderful Stonington transfer station with like a cute little welcoming gatehouse here and the beautiful flowers. Again, clear signage and plenty of room for cars to get around.
Okay, great. Looks like everyone has a pretty efficient setup there, so that's great. So our next question will be the topic of collecting food scraps. Question is, to what extent are odors and wildlife an issue when collecting food scraps at the transfer station? If you've come across particular challenges, how do you solve them? So we'll go with Jill first.
We do accept food scraps at the transfer station. We do have curbside collection available to residents on a weekly basis. So they can put it out and it will be collected. But quite a few of the residents prefer to bring it in, especially if the bags are full or smelly. In our first staging area, we have an 8-yard sealed side slant dumpster with plastic lift up lids. They just pull right up, place the bags in there, and they're all set. The sealed can does prevent liquids from leaking out, and the lid keeps any of the big vultures that do tend to hang around and animals out. Thankfully, we haven't had any problems with either the birds or the animals. We empty that can no less than once a week, and we didn't even have any problems during the summer with birds or animals or anything like that. So we've been fairly lucky with collecting the food waste at the transfer station.
Okay, great. Linda?
Hi. I wanted to go over the models that we have here out in Berkshire and Hampshire County. We do have one drop-off transfer station for food scraps, which I'll get into in a few moments. We also have home pickup by two very good composting companies, Second Chance Composting and Tommy's Composting. They were both awarded grants through Mass DEP this year. They both obtained a new vehicle, and they're doing great. And then we also have Earth Machine sales. We provide Earth Machines through Orbis, through our state contract, in their home composting units. They range around $58. And the towns we usually sell them for $25. The towns subsidize the difference through their recycling dividends grant money through the state. And the Earth Machines are great. However, a lot of our towns are in the woods, so bears like to get them. So I would say if you live in the woods, Earth Machines don't work. I do want to touch upon the town of Williamstown. We went into a pilot study just before COVID, myself and two community members that were very excited about collecting food scraps. We did the study with Williams College environmental students. Took about 9 months for the study, and the study turned out in favor of starting a pilot program. We collaborated with Casella Waste, who is our contracted hauler, and they provided 6 months free of food scrap pickup at the transfer station. Williams College donated our wonderful shed, and we have toters in the shed with a sawdust where people, when they come, they put the food into the toters. There's no odor, there's no problems with animals. Everything is secure into the shed. Once it went from pilot, it did wonderful. We recently just went to full-time. It's a service now through the transfer station. We had to go through a lot of hoops because some of the some of the responsibility falls on the transfer station attendant. And as we all know, they're very busy during the day. So we have two community volunteers that really stepped up. We have full service. We provide Sure pails. They're the small pails that we got on the state contract. I think they're about $4 if you buy them. And we provide those for each resident that utilizes the organics scrap collection. And it is really going well. And now we are using Tommy's compost for this program. So we're supporting local vendors and our compost is staying local. And I do want to mention that, you know, Massachusetts has waistband regulation. I don't know if you have such a regulation in Connecticut, but Massachusetts prohibits the disposal of certain materials. And as of November, food waste organics was listed on there, but for commercial only. So if you in Massachusetts have a half a ton of food waste or more a week, you are supposed to be composting. If you're a commercial, school, business, restaurant, it's not hit the residential area yet, but we're preparing for that. So it's going very well. The only challenge was getting the DPW, because they oversee the transfer station, and the attendant to buy into this, but we made it so easy as a transition. It's going very well. But we offer those 3 opportunities, which I think is really great.
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah.
All right, so lastly, Emily.
Hi, so we have, as you saw in a picture, or maybe you saw briefly in that picture of our transfer station, we have 64-gallon toters that are placed next to the pay-as-you-throw trash compactors. And we hand out small composting bins through Orbis, just like Linda, to our residents who want to participate. And we sometimes if people keep them for a while, we recommend putting them in the freezer until you bring them to the transfer station. And then they just open it up and dump it in. We really haven't had too many problems with wildlife issues. I mean, granted, sometimes in the summer, it can, you know, odors can happen, but it's only a 64-gallon toter, so it does get replaced very frequently. And then we have a local company out of Sandwich that comes and picks up all the toters and replaces them with clean ones.
Perfect, and we'll just show Linda's Williamstown setup here that she had mentioned briefly. That's their shed, and this is one of the 2 haulers that she mentioned, Tommy's. And they've got a great sign here with a QR code. And we'll go to the next question.
Okay, great. And being a little mindful of time here, we'll go to the next question here. The topic is bags. Question is, one way to implement a pay-as-you-throw program is with town-branded bags. Can you describe how your bag system works? Where do residents buy them? How much do they cost? And what sizes are there? We'll go with Emily first.
Hi, so we have town branded pay-as-you-throw bags. We have 3 different sizes. That we have an 8-gallon bag that are 50 cents each, and then we have a 13-gallon size bag that are $1 each, and then we have a 33-gallon bag that are $2 each. They each come in a pack of 5. We have local markets in town that sell them. And then all the Stop and Shops and Shaws in the area, which we don't have any in town, but we have the neighboring towns all sell them as well. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward. They buy a permit at a reduced rate compared to other towns that don't have pay-as-you-throw, and then they also purchase the bags as they go.
Okay, great. And Linda?
Hi again. Again, you know, I'm a little unusual because I have 24 municipalities, and the municipalities that operate a transfer station, all of them have a pay-as-you-throw implemented program, except for 4 of my towns. And I'm working very hard to get them to convert over. And we recently just had a presentation to the board of directors for HMRC, and we had Taylor from Waste Zero there. So we're working on that. But right now, most of our towns utilize the bag tags. And prior to COVID, we had some towns that had the bags and it was working well. However, when COVID hit, we had really no way to get the bags to the individuals. No one was going anywhere. So we implemented the bag tag program. And now the bag tags come on a sheet and they can be mailed to the individuals. You know, our towns are small. Some towns have no stores. And all of our bag tags are sold at the town hall. There are very few transfer stations that allow the attendant to sell the bag tags. They're not allowed to accept cash or money unless they're bonded through the state. That's just, it's a regulation that we have. But the bag tags are working. And again, each town, they range in different price, anywhere from $1 to $3.50. So the towns regulate the bag tag according to what, you know, each bag costs, and they change the price yearly if they have to. But a lot of the towns only charge $1 per bag. You know, and it can get difficult because some people try to sneak those big construction bags in, you know, those huge, what are they, you know, 50 gallons. So the attendant is very, it's important that the attendant is really helping facilitate this. It's going well, but however, I do love the bags. Again, I hope to convert the 4 towns that aren't in the pay-as-you-throw program. And again, all the residents buy them through the towns. I love the idea of buying at a supermarket, a Stop and Shop or a Price Chopper. But some of our towns are honestly an hour from a store. So we sell them all through the municipality, but it's going very well. I highly recommend pay-as-you-throw.
Thank you, Linda. All right. And lastly, Jill.
So here in Stonington, we purchase our bags from Waste Zero. We order a year's supply in advance. We order about 450,000 bags a year. Waste Zero stores the bags for us in their warehouse. We keep a supply here on hand of about 200 cases of large and 100 cases of small. Retail stores are called once a week for their order, and deliveries are made the next day by a transfer station employee. The stores are billed on a monthly basis by the town, and residents can find the bags at all of the larger grocery chains. We have Big Y, Stop and Shop, McQuaid's, and we also sell them at the smaller stores such as Henny Penny, Chucky's, Stonington Shells, gas stations. We carry 2 size bags. We also sell them in sleeves of 5. It's $9 for a sleeve of 5 33-gallon bags for the large, and $6 for a sleeve of 5 for the 15-gallon, and that's the small bags. And that system seems to work very well for us.
Okay, great. So the 4th question, question number 4, topic is complaint enforcement and penalties. Question is, if your pay-as-you-throw or organics program is mandatory, how do you enforce it? What penalties exist for non-compliant residents? And is it common that residents fail to comply? We'll start with Linda here.
Okay, well, pay-as-you-throw is mandatory in all of the towns that, you know, that I discussed earlier. Organics program is not mandatory at this time through state regulations. So we don't make that program, that is not mandatory in any of our transfer stations. We recommend residents to join in on an organics program through Tommy's or Second Chance Composting, or utilize an on-site program. Pay-as-you-throw penalties. You know, we always have this time of year in July when we sell our permits and our bag tags. People will be like, oh, I forgot, you know, that it was July, and they don't have their bag tags. We give them one break. And then, you know, it's really up to the attendant to report to the town the license plate and who's not complying. And then the town will call, and, you know, we don't really have a penalty. We nicely enforce it. So we don't, but we do see that happening. I have not You know, when we switched, the town of Adams was a recycling center only. It was free till 2016. And we worked with Mass DEP and we converted it over for a full transfer station. And now we had to charge permit fees. So now recycling wasn't free. The permit fee includes everything. People were on Facebook or chats, oh, we're going to go to private haulers. Well, you had a few that did that, but they came right back. Our transfer stations, every year the permit sales go up. So I do not see that being a problem. And you know what? People have the option to go to a private hauler. But our towns have private hauler regulations and they have to abide by those regulations or they are fined and they could lose their permit to service the town. So,
Okay, thank you, Linda. Emily?
Hi, so yeah, our pay as you throw is mandatory. Our organics recycling is not. That's voluntary. For pay as you throw, our bags are bright yellow, and we have attendants on the line. As you saw in that picture, there's a line of bins and we have attendants. We have 3 attendants that are working and throughout the day. So we nicely, if there's an issue, we can talk to them. But for the most part, I do not hear of any issues going on. So it works pretty well.
Okay, great. And lastly, Jill.
So we've had pay as you throw here in Stonington for 30 years and it is mandatory. So our residents are used to using our official bags. Someone who doesn't put their trash out in an official bag, their trash won't be picked up curbside. If you bring it to the transfer station in a non-yellow bag, we won't take it. They do have the option to dispose of the trash with a bulky waste fee, but that can get costly. So because we've had the program enforced for so long, I think everybody's just used to using our yellow bags, and we're not really aware of too many residents that have switched to a private hauler. I think that the cost there would be much more than if they used our official bags. And our organics program is not mandatory. We're in a pilot program right now, and that's just a volunteer program.
Okay, great. All right, so we're on question number 5. We're about halfway through, so we'll try to keep these answers a little bit short. Topic is equity. Question is, what, if any, provisions exist in your program to accommodate residents living on low incomes or residents experiencing poverty? To what extent do you have residents expressing that they are unable to afford bags, and how have you addressed this issue? We'll start off with Jill here.
So Stonington, we don't have a policy in place to accommodate a low-income residents. We haven't had anyone requesting help purchasing the bags. We do work with our neighborhood center, offering assistance if someone's in need. And of course, we work with the Stonington Human Services Department, and they know they could always contact us if they did have a client who needed bags.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jill. Linda?
So some of our towns do allow a discount for seniors or low income. Usually it's I think 65 or older. However, I would like to see this implemented in more of our towns, but it's a work in progress, as you know. And a lot of our towns have subsidized housing units where the landlords provide the trash pickup in the rent. So, I have not gotten any calls of a resident not being able to afford bags. However, like Jill mentioned, I think that they would express it directly to the town clerk or the DPW that are running the facility through the towns. And then we would help. When we do our bulky waste collections, people come with change. I know they don't have the money, so we allow them to, dispose of for free. But yeah, that's it. Everything seems to be working well with the discounts.
Great. And Emily?
So we have not really had this issue come up. I'm here on the front lines answering the phones, and I have not had in the past 8 years had anybody call. Not to say that we won't or don't through other means, but I have not heard this being an issue in our town.
Okay, great. Next question. Topic is effectiveness. Question, do you consider your programs to be effective at reducing waste and saving taxpayer money? How do you quantify or track their impact? All right, we'll start with Linda here.
Okay, so monthly I receive reports from both Waste Management and Casella Waste, our haulers. I see what's going out, what's coming in, and if there's a red flag on recycling, then I call the town and say, look, we need to, things aren't running the way they should. However, yearly we report all of our tonnage to Mass DEP through Retrack, and that is compiled. And I just recently got the map for Mass DEP, and it shows the towns how all the towns are doing with the pay-as-you-throw program. And the towns that don't, see those red dots? Those are the bad towns. No, those are the ones that are, there's a lot of waste going on. But you'll see the towns that do have the pay-as-you-throw and the pounds per household. So we do have a tracking system through the state.
That's great.
And can I do one other thing? The pay-as-you-throw isn't going to be the end all of saving this taxpayers' money. It's other recycling programs, and it's using your state's contracts to save money through vendors. That's huge. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Next, we'll call on Jill.
So due to the incentive to recycle more, because we do use pay-as-you-throw, Stonington residents recycle just about as much waste as they do put in their yellow bags. Our residents generate around 5,000 tons of yellow bag trash annually, but recycling isn't too far behind at 4,000 tons. So by residents being conscientious of their yellow bag purchases and the expense, I believe they recycle more than if they were just able to use any cheap bag. And thanks to SCARA, the town doesn't pay for the disposal of single stream. That's a benefit afforded to the town for being a member of the authority. And if the town had to pay for recycling, it would cost well over $250,000 a year. So the more we can take out of the yellow bag and recycle, that's not an additional cost to the town or the taxpayers.
Great. All right, and Emily.
Hi, I don't think I have too much more to add, but we do track our tonnages on a monthly basis, and we do the same thing as Linda, report it to our Retrack and report it to our recycling commission and so that we can look at how we're doing.
Okay. And next question, launching a new program. Getting a pay-as-you-throw or organics program started can seem like a daunting task. Why did your community decide to implement these programs? What lessons learned can you share from when you first launched, or wisdom that you've learned along the way? All right, we'll go with Emily again.
So I started in 2016. Our pay-as-you-throw program started in 2013, but I was a resident here and very involved in the community. And so what I have to say is that we utilized every person possible and helped educate. And I think that that is the most valuable thing that we can do is just get the information out there through flyers. We have a recycling information flyer that we can hand out to new residents. But we also, we reach through our recycling commission. We reached people through phones. We reached through our community I'm blanking, I'm sorry. Our community TV, television programming. So we just reached as many people as we possibly could that way.
Great. All right. And next we'll go to Jill.
So Stonington implemented the pay-as-you-throw system because we had 30 years ago, because we had just closed the landfill and entered into a long-term contract with SCARA, and we needed to find a way to pay for the tipping fees at the newly built Preston facility. Residents were looking at a 1.5 to 2 mil increase on their taxes, and the pay-as-you-throw system was the alternative to that. Was it easy? No, you talk to my predecessor and he will tell you that it did pass. It passed by a 2-to-1 margin, but that was after 24 public hearings and a town meeting. So it was a challenging task. With our organics program, I think we would chosen to host this because we do have a lot of diversion in our trash. We have the yellow bag system, we had textile recycling and our single stream. So it made sense to try the organics program. So far, the launch went well and it seems to be moving along very well. We're averaging about 20 tons a month, diverting from the yellow bags. The only thing I would change with the organics collection is the distribution of the food waste collection kits. I think instead of delivering them door to door, I would have bucket distribution events. And I think the interested residents have shown that they would attend a collection kit giveaway. And I think the majority of our participating residents probably picked up their pail at a distribution event. So I think that's the only thing I would change with that.
Okay, great. And Linda.
All right, well, here I am again. So our pay-as-you-throw programs, I believe we implement best practices when we have a pay-as-you-throw. You're diverting materials from the waste stream to, like Jill and Emily said, to other recycling programs such as textiles, such as scrap metal, books. We have a book recycling. We're all about reuse, recycle, and upcycle. And I know Emily had mentioned outreach and education. It's huge. We recently, I worked with Mass DEP and the Springfield Materials Recovery Facility, and we created I don't know if you can see this, a reduce, reuse, recycle guide. And this is, you can get it electronically, or we had printed guides, and people are loving it because you can educate for years and years and you still have questions. People, they don't know where to go. They don't know how to recycle. So this guide is really helped. Organics program was daunting, like I said, to get it started. But we had 2 huge community members in Williams College backing us. And when you have 2 community members wanting to reduce the organics and help climate change, it worked. Like I said, it was a 9-month study, but we got the program up and running. And pay as you throw, since I started, same as Emily, in 2016, I've converted one town that was not pay as you throw. All the other towns were. It took selectmen meetings, presentations. But you know what? Once I sat down, people are fearful. Oh, we're going to have illegal dumping. Oh, we're going to have this. I said, no, you're not going to have illegal dumping. And when you have a pay as you throw, like I said, you're creating best practices, reducing waste, and they get extra points on their RDP grant money. So that was a big sell. You get 5 points on your recycling dividends grant if you have a pay as you throw in Massachusetts. It's huge.
Great.
It's a lot of money.
And I'll just jump in here quickly. So I know that we're coming up on the 11 o'clock hour. Friendly reminder that this is scheduled for an hour and a half, but I know the Zoom invite might have said something different. So if you have to leave, we totally understand. This is being recorded and we're going to send it out to everyone afterwards, but I hope you'll stick with us for the next bit because we're about to wrap up with these questions and head into your questions. So thank you.
Thanks, Christine. I know we kind of touched on education in the last question, but this next question is, how do you communicate with residents regarding your programs? For instance, if someone new moves to town, do you have a procedure to get them up to speed? And Jill, we'll go with you.
Well, our solidwaste.gov website has a lot of information on the department and its services. Most often, we don't know we have a new resident until they stop in. And once they stop in to ask questions, we provide them with a bin of the food waste collection kit, recycling information, and a solid waste disposal guide. Our transfer station, we also host a Friends of the Stonington Transfer Station Facebook page that has many helpful hints, updates on trash service, and we're big dog lovers, so we're always posting people's residents' dogs as well, and it gets them to look. So we have over 1,100 members on our Facebook page, and it is a good way to get that information out there for us.
Okay, great. And Linda, do you have anything else to add about education?
I'll be real quick. So, again, we don't, I would love to start like a welcome packet for new residents, but with 24 towns, it's very difficult. I rely on the town's website and our district website. Word of mouth is huge, and press releases and just information that we give out in the community. Everybody needs trash pickup or trash removal. So, we don't have a specific way. It's working.
Okay, great. And Emily, anything else to add?
I don't think too much else to add. I mean, we utilize our website, we have a recycling flyer, and we get a lot of phone calls.
Okay, great. And question number,
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to quickly point out that the excellent signage that we see at the transfer stations can really be a benefit in educating residents.
great. Question number 9. What other waste reduction measures have you implemented at your transfer station? We'll go with Linda.
Okay, like I said, every town is different, but most of our towns have swap shops, and I love them. I know Emily spoke about hers, and Jill. I love swap shops. It's like people love to go there. We have mattress recycling because it's implemented now. It's a part of the waste ban as of November 2022. We have to recycle mattresses. We have tire recycling. We have universal waste, which are batteries and fluorescent light bulbs. We have book recycling, textile recycling, repair cafes, shredding events. Oh, and yeah, so we try to provide as many services as we can to divert as many materials out of the waste stream and stay in compliance with the state.
Sounds like great work. Thank you, Linda. All right, Jill.
So I think like Linda, we try to divert as much as we can. We have single stream, plastic film, metal, e-waste, food waste, waste oil, fluorescent bulbs, cooking oil, propane, paint, batteries, tires, mattresses, books, and textiles. We try to take as much as we can out of the yellow bag and recycle it or put it to better use. And yes, we love our reuse shed as well.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jill. All right, and Emily.
I think Linda and Jill both kind of spoke ahead and kind of shared everything that kind of we also have. I just will say, in terms of a swap shop, if anybody doesn't have one and is thinking about it, it doesn't, our swap shop runs 3 days a week, in the summer from 10 to 2. It's pretty basic. We have a list of items we don't take, a list of items right on our website, a list of items that we might take if we have room, and it's run on a volunteer basis. So that's kind of really nice. We work with them, we communicate if they need anything, and yeah.
And just to show off a little bit, we've got there's the beautiful Brewster Swap Shop and all of their many donation and diversion opportunities. We have Williamstown, that's Linda's clothing. They got a cute little book space here. And then this is very cool from Jill in Stonington, that when she mentioned plastic film, they work with a company called Trex. And when they divert a certain amount of tonnage, they actually get like a free bench to put in their community. So there's no reason not to do some extra diversion efforts. And Tom, take it away with our last question.
Awesome. That all looks like a great way to reduce the waste. So last question is advice. The question is, any other advice or thoughts before we open the floor to questions? We'll start with Jill.
I think we already touched on it. I think it's education. We need to get the word out to the residents that we are in a trash disposal crisis. And simply put, we're running out of room and our waste infrastructure is aging. I think reduction is the key, and the idea of preventing waste in the first place is essential. And I think we need to get that word out.
Great. And Emily.
I think Jill answered it wonderfully, and I just think education, and education.
Agreed. And lastly, Linda.
So, I mentioned best practices quite a bit, and where we're located in the corner of Massachusetts, we border New York and Vermont. It's very important that our transfer stations, and we do a great job, follow the waste ban regulations, because all of our waste goes to another state. It goes to a holding area, and then it's shipped out to a landfill in New York, and we use some facilities in Vermont. So, we have to be stewards of the environment. And it can be very overwhelming and very costly for municipalities to offer all of these programs. But you know what? You can do it, and we're doing it. I try to look at our contracts and really do the best I can for the towns using our state contracts. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for your insight. All of those answers were really helpful. So now we're going to go over to answering all of your questions in the chat.
Great. Thank you so much, Tom. Quick note to please raise your hand if you'd like to make a comment. We're going to address everything in the chat first, but you can feel free to raise your hand now, and we'll recognize you and answer your questions. So briefly, there was a request to go back to a particular slide, so let me do that now. There's the Trex plastic film recycling. And again, everyone is going to get these slides afterwards, so you can you'll have plenty of time to look over all the cool stuff going on here. And with that, I'm going to stop the share and we'll just have a conversation. So I'm going to go back to our earlier questions. The first thing we got was actually a comment rather than a question. It was from Delia, and she said, I disagree that people who use transfer stations care more. Delia, did you want to come off mute and comment on that a little further, or would you can?
Hi, I'm Delia. I think there are a lot of people who care a lot about the environment. In my town, we don't have a transfer station. We do have the bags you have to put stickers on, and I'm really happy. It's really convenient, and so I'd really use it. But I know my downstairs neighbors don't recycle at all. Somehow they don't put out very much trash, but they also never recycle anything. So I can see how some people may not care, but I don't know that you could say they care more. I grew up in a town where we had a transfer station in New Hampshire and no one cared. So
yeah, and maybe care was not the right way to characterize it. I guess what I was saying is sometimes you have a little more engagement when people are physically bringing the process of putting your trash in the car, bringing it there, as opposed to it disappears from my curb every week. But your point is well taken. Yeah.
I really love when you have a transfer station that has a swap shop. Like with my option, we don't have that. So some people leave things out by the road, and some people may take the stuff and reuse it, but I think it just ends up staying on the side of the road and becoming broken junk.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you, Delia. All right, our next question is from Alice, and it is, what do the transfer stations do with the bags themselves? What happens to them after the materials are removed? So I guess I'll ask our panelists, I don't think you guys process this at your transfer stations, right? That happens at the waste disposal facility?
Is this regarding the organics bags?
Maybe Alice could come off mute and clarify.
I sure can. I'm interested in anything that comes in a bag. I'm interested in knowing whether transfer stations, how much of the stuff from the transfer station that you folks get in a bag gets out of the bag at your transfer station. And in that case, what you do with the bags.
Speaking
Was
for-
that a clear question? Sorry.
Sure. Well, Stonington, we don't, trash that comes in the yellow bag, gets loaded into a 40-yard can and we transport it to Lisbon where it's incinerated. Our green bags for our food waste programs, that food waste stays in the bag and it's brought to Quantum Biopower where they have machinery that, separates the food waste from the bag. So we don't remove anything from the bag here.
Thank you.
Same with us. When the bags come in, they go into a compactor and then they go to the facility that Casella has and it goes through a scanner. And there have been times where we've gotten some issues with a radioactive contamination. But it's very slim. But no, the attendants are not allowed to open the bags and go through garbage ever. So that's up. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Next question we have is from Moira, beautiful Irish name. If you require pay-as-you-throw or organics diversion but do not have curbside pickup, what do you do for residents who do not have cars? Any of our panelists can answer.
Stonington has curbside. So for us, we have that option for people.
So for us, for Northern Brook, no, if you don't have a car where we live, it's difficult because we don't have a lot of bus transportation. So I will say most of the people do have cars. If they don't, neighbors helping neighbors. We've had, the neighbor bring the neighbor's trash to the transfer station with their permit, or they use a private hauler to pick up at their home. So there's not really a transportation company. We do have one gentleman now that's picking up with their bike. It's called trash people picking up trash or something. He rides his bike and he literally brings trash to the transfer station in Adams. I don't know what he's doing now. He must have studded his tires. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, and I think whether or not you have pay-as-you-throw or curbside, it would be the same problem for just using the transfer station in general. Yeah, okay. So we have a comment here from Joe just saying that we provide pails with lids to residents that we get donated, used from local businesses for a voluntary drop-off program. That's fabulous. I love that idea. Partnering with the businesses makes the businesses look good. Maybe they can get their logo on it for advertising purposes, and it's a awesome way to engage the community. Our next question is also from Alice. For those who use bag tags, are there codes on the bags that trace back to households? Is there education or feedback, positive or negative, that is then provided to households?
So when the residents come for their yearly permit, they're always, given some type of flyer, but most of the residents coming have been residents in using the transfer stations for years. Like I said, our towns are very small, so the chances of having an influx of new residents is very slim in some of our municipalities. The larger ones, yes. The code on there, there's a security code on there, so people can't make the tags. I know the permits are numbered, so if someone comes in and misuses the transfer station, the permit is attached to their license plate. I don't know. I know when they sell the bag tags, each one has a number, but I can't honestly say if the towns track that. So I don't know that. I don't think they can track that. I hope that helps.
It does. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, so CJ asked, what is the average dollar spent for an average family in various towns over the course of a year in terms of bag or tag costs in pay as you throw?
Oh,
For,
Oh.
well, for Stonington, we always throw this number around. So if you're a typical family and you generate one large bag of yellow household waste, I think we averaged it out, it's $108 a year. So, and that's using a large yellow bag every single week. So if you're filling more than that 33 gallons, then you need to recycle more or look a little more at what you're doing. We do know there's big families and they do generate more trash. But I would say on average, one large bag a week would cost a Stonington resident $108, $110 a year.
Emily, did you have a?
Yeah, so I was just gonna say I work in my town, but I also live in my town, and we use one 13-gallon bag a week, and we buy one sticker a year, so that's $50, and each bag is $1, so you're talking about $102 a year. If you have a couple get-togethers throughout the year, maybe add in an extra $5 or $10 if you're thinking you're gonna have a couple like a Christmas or Thanksgiving at your house, then add in a little bit more. Obviously, if I had kids with diapers or anything like that, there'd be probably double that. But you know, there's towns around us that don't have pay as you throw, and their permits are significantly higher than that.
Yeah, I'll also give a little context. When I lived in Monroe, Connecticut and used a private hauler, I paid $35 a month. So that was, triple, quadruple that cost for a private hauler. So just a little context. Okay, Alice asked, what kind of shelter and staffing needs need to be provided for swap shops?
So I think I talked about this earlier. Our swap shop is run on a volunteer basis, with support from our transfer station and DPW. We are open 9 months out of the year. We're closed in the January, February, March, just because we run off of a wood stove in there, and it takes too long to heat up. So we do close for the winter months.
Our swap shops, recently the town of Florida, which is a small town on Route 2 in Massachusetts, they got a grant. They used their RDP money, and we partnered with our technical school, McCann's Technical School, and they built the shed for the town, and the materials cost about $5,000, and it's a beautiful shed with a metal roof, and it's all volunteer basis, like Emily said. We tried to implement regulations for drop-off because people can take advantage of the swap shop if it's not maintained well. I also partner with community service program, and we try to, help keep the swap shops as clean. We go up once a month and we organize and clean for the towns. So.
Okay, fabulous. Alice asked a question. I don't think that's quite related to waste reduction, so I'm going to move on to the next ones here. Our next one from Delia. I'm sure buses don't allow people to bring trash bags on the bus, right? Yeah, I think that is probably the case. I don't know. Does anyone have any experience with that? Okay, I think that goes back to the doing these programs with someone who doesn't have a car. Okay, next is Moira. Has any municipality required local commercial entities to accept bags and packaging their merchandise comes in? I have wondered if such a requirement might incentivize businesses to use less packaging on the products they sell on site. Customers who are not planning to return merchandise might welcome not having to add the packaging to their own trash. This does sound a little bit more like an EPR or an extended producer responsibility type program. Does anyone have any experience with getting, for instance, like a fast food place that puts things in Like I know in Middletown, they have a sort of a reusable container program there. Does anyone have an experience, Linda?
So some of the towns implemented, through the boards of health and the select boards, banning plastic bags in stores, or banning styrofoam cups. But that's, but that has to go through many hoops, but we've done that in some of the municipalities. But then COVID hit and that got a little bit laxed, but things are coming back. So.
Yeah, that's I think that's tough. That some of that requires acts of the legislatures, and
Yes.
it's not always super easy to do on a per town basis. That might be something that needs to come down from the state. But Moira, your point is very well taken. We need system change, and not always at the end of life. We sometimes need less packaging at the beginning of life of these products. So I totally empathize with that. So Rachel has asked, Jill mentioned cooking oil recycling at the Stonington transfer station. We have that in Manchester, but we're having trouble with disposal because of the new EPA rules. Christina has echoed that sentiment, and Chelsea from Deep says that Deep is aware of these challenges and is working on solutions to support towns. Jill, do you have anything else to add?
We did have to just recently change where we were sending the cooking oil because of those changes. And SCARA and the 12 towns, we've just signed up with another company. It's Bio New or something. I can send it out to anybody that wants to know. We just recently switched over the last week or so. And so I can send out that name. It's just not coming to the top of my head right now.
Okay, perfect. I believe that is the end of questions I have seen in the chat. If anyone would like to raise their hand and speak their question, we would love to hear from you. Or, if you have comments or anything, we'd love to hear from you. Maybe we had some people just here to soak it all in and start considering changes for their own transfer stations. So, okay, 11:20, not bad, I would say. Anyone want to get in a last word before we wrap up? I'm going to work on getting the contact information up here for these wonderful presenters. Huge thank you to Linda, Jill, and Emily for a really fantastic and comprehensive presentation. They all gave me permission to post these, so feel free to bug them with your questions and comments. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you to my co-host, Tom, and thanks to Connecticut Deep, who has funded the SMM grant program and made this webinar possible. Everyone have a wonderful Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Christine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're gonna mail this off to us, right, Christine?
Absolutely, you got it.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
you.
Great
Bye-bye.
job. Thank you. Thank
All
you
right,
all.
thank you.